welcome to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture podcast. I'm Miguel Covarrubias.
And I'm Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about the movie Us.
Yes, Jordan Peele's Us. I know there are a lot of things that are named Us or This Is Us, but we're talking
about Us.
Us, the movie that just came out in March, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's why I specified the movie and not just said, let's talk about Us.
Yes, so we're not going to be talking about ourselves personally very much, I don't think. Anyway, there are spoilers for this movie. If you have not yet seen it, go and watch it. It is fantastic. I know it's very divisive at this moment. There are a lot of people who don't like it because they don't quite get it. Then there are those who just love it because it is very deep. It's layered. It has a lot to talk about, and we've got a lot to talk about it. So if you have not yet seen it, go see it, rent it on any digital streaming service, and then come back and listen to the show.
Absolutely.
All right, so now let's move on to our summary and review. I'm going to go with what I said earlier. Think Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but different.
That's a very short summary. All right. I will take the mantle and give you a little bit more clues to help jog your memory. Okay, so a family goes back to the mom's home residence where she grew up. It happens to be at a beach. She doesn't want to go to the beach. They go to the beach. The son has a weird experience. Then at night, these weird people come to their house. They try to murder them. The family ends up surviving. And then a bunch of strangers hold hands across the world.
America, rather.
Well, I don't know, because I wonder if it is the world, because you see the bodies going into the ocean.
It's America, and we'll talk about that here in just a second.
Did they reach all the way to Hawaii?
Sure. That's, but we'll talk about that here in just a second. Review. I really enjoyed it. It took me a lot to really kind of pull apart the theme. In fact, I had to actually watch, as soon as we watched this one video, it did kind of click for me. And I'll shout out to that video here in just a minute when I get to it. But, there was so much there that I had so many different theories of the theme that was playing across this movie that... that's a sign of a good writer, in my opinion, is if somebody is able to write what they intended, but also have so many layers that, people can just pick, what they want from it and pull something different out from it. That's a sign of a good writing, of a good storyteller. And I think that Jordan Peele is a fantastic storyteller. Absolutely.
Yep. So I'm guessing you're saying that you liked it.
Yes.
Okay. I also liked it to a point, because at this stage, I get really nitpicky with movies. And so, I'm starting to find the holes, and I'm, picking at it, and I'm trying not to do that to ruin it, because there are so many layers. And I think maybe that's why so many people don't necessarily like it, because there's so many layers that there's no clear major theme. Because there's so many little themes.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's why people have a hard time doing it, because he's trying to jam-pack a lot of information into a short movie, but I don't know. I mean, I liked it. I definitely watch it again, knowing what I know now from the end, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I really feel that the theme is quite evident in a lot of the call-outs, and especially... And to get into it here, we have, I have to thank Matt Pat's Film Theory channel for this one, primarily because I think he really solidified what the theme was for me. The theme, I saw it was more of us as people, human beings in the world, that our own kind of personal desires, or ourselves, we are killing ourselves trying to get ahead, trying to achieve, trying to be better than anyone else. But he really pointed out that it's more about the American dream than just the human experience. Because I think that since we grew up in the United States of America, we associate that to all of humanity because that's our own experience. We haven't really experienced growing up elsewhere.
One of the biggest criticisms of the United States is that we as citizens tend to think that we are the center of the world, that like everything like revolves around us. Mm-hmm. Part of the problem is that a lot of the movies that we produce out of Hollywood like tend to spread around the world, and I think that's part of it.
So really what I feel that it is very true to the American experience, especially because we came up with this idea of the American dream. And I think this is something that, what I'm going to call comparist narcissism, which really it's kind of more of a critique of the American dream, which maybe it should be called more neo-absurdist, which is why I think there is such a rise in shows and pop culture that is really kind of using Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, who really started the absurdist movement. In fact, one of our favorite shows to do on this is an absurdist show. It is The Good Place, mm-hmm. which is kind of a very loose adaptation of Jean-Paul Sartre's No Exit, which we talked about way back in season 1. And the thing is, I think that it's kind of this reaction to the American dream and that idea of sort of keeping up with the Joneses, that if you work hard enough, you can achieve this financial, like, I don't know, supremism.
Yeah, or like at least have that whole vision of the house with the white picket fence and the 2.2 children, which our generation is definitely not able to see. Millennials by far are not able to afford a house, let alone children, whether that be 1 or 2. So it's that vision of the American dream for sure is definitely out of reach for many people.
Well, and I think that I'm glad you brought this up because I'm not the one who actually brought up millennials this time. Yay! So, it's really, I feel that it's because millennials realize that it's not obtainable, mm-hmm. that we're working hard, we're putting in 40, 80, almost 120 hours a week at our jobs, and we're getting nowhere fast. Mm-hmm. That we're in a sense killing ourselves to make a buck, to achieve this American idealist dream.
And yet we're supposed to be grateful for what we have, and we're getting the bare bones of like what we need to survive,
Yeah.
Let alone being able to save up for a house or children.
Well, I haven't quite looked into this, but I'm pretty sure that all of these artists that I'm about to name drop are millennials, but I think
at least
that
millennial-ish.
Well, they were popular when millennials controlled kind of the consumerist base of pop culture.
Gotcha.
So the first one I really I think embodied this movie was the Chainsmokers' "Sick Boy," which I for the longest time thought that the song was by the 21 Pilots because it sounds so much like them. Because Chainsmokers are more kind of like love poppy kind of.
I feel like there's been a lot of there's been a lot of recent songs like where the Chainsmokers are like collaborating with a lot of artists, and they all sound the same to me.
Yeah, pretty much. But this one doesn't sound the same, uh-huh. which is why I liked it so much and didn't realize that it was the Chainsmokers until not too long ago. And the song really, I think the lyrics really touch on the some of the themes that are in this movie. And I apologize for the clicking, but I'm going to be clicking back and forth with the lyrics and the recording suite, so you'll hear some of the clicking from the mouse. But I wanted to read the lyrics from just the end of the first verse and kind of the refrain, which, or more or less the end of the refrain and the second verse, which kind of talk about what I'm talking about, which is when everyone projects and expects you to listen to them, make no mistake, I live in a prison that I built myself. It is my religion, and they say that I am the sick boy. Easy to say when you don't take the risk, boy. Welcome to the narcissism. Yeah, we're united in our indifference. And I'm from the east side of America, where we desensitize by hysteria. We could pick sides, but this is us. This is us. This is us. And I really feel like a lot of songs, especially for millennials, are taking this idea of how what is wrong with our society. We're obsessed with this stuff that kind of hides who we really are to get ahead and to try to make ourselves more marketable so that we can achieve this American dream, which honestly, I think that's what's killing us. We're hiding ourselves, and this was another theory that I had, was that it's about moving away from our natural desires and what our instincts are, and that since they seem to be more animalistic, the tethered, and which ultimately didn't really. There was a lot of holes in that theory, so it didn't prove true. But I think that's part of it, is that we do these things to really hide who we are on the inside, including hiding our animalistic desires and some of those things that really make human beings the animals that we are. Another song that I wanted to bring up was 21 Pilots' song was Car Radio. And this one, was something that what struck me today while I was listening to it as I was mowing the lawn was that was this part in the chorus that I have these thoughts so often I ought to replace that slot with what I once bought because somebody stole my car radio and now I just sit in silence. And sometimes quiet is violent. I find it hard to hide it. My pride is no longer inside. It's on my sleeve. My skin will scream. And this is the thing, is that we hide from our personal demons by this consumerist stuff, by buying stuff, by noise, by listening to podcasts, by listening to music. This is weird for me to say on a podcast. It's kind of our way to run and hide from these things, and in essence, we're killing ourselves. We're creating these instances where we're so out of touch with who we are because we want more. It's that narcissistic consumerism is what I'm calling, or the comparison narcissism is what I'm calling it.
Well, for me, about the song that kind of really hits, it's the whole quiet is violent, and that really resonates with me. Well, and anybody who has anxiety, really. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like that's scary when you get the quiet time, because then you have to think. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
Like you're sitting alone with your own thoughts, and that can be scary. So I've been trying to turn off the car radio in the car when I'm by myself, so I can kind of process things and think through things instead of being distracted by the radio, and it sucks.
I agree. There are times when I have to turn things off and really think about stuff, and it does, but I think it's primarily for me, it's not as bad recently, because recently I've been trying to figure out who I am, trying to get in touch with me.
It's all about mindfulness.
Yeah. And a lot of that it was violent, trying to avoid myself. And I think this is another part of that, was that when we isolate those parts of ourselves, those parts become violent. And they become
like the tethered.
Yeah, exactly. They like caged animals. Like they don't want to be caged. And this is bringing it back in. And I think this is part of what is causing, especially in America, this problem with violence. And when people blaming it on mental illness, it's a yes. And what are we doing about it? We're not. But this is America. This is America where, and speaking of This is America, I'm going to bring up This is America, the song, is that, just the verse is, they're really poppy, and they really bring in kind of, we just want to party just for you. We just want the money just for you. I know you want to party just for free. Girl, you got me dancing, like all of that stuff. And then in the chorus, where it's that trap beat, and it's like, this is America, don't catch you slipping now. When it's that undertone of get your money and just, this is what it is in America, is that we want to portray this good image of, oh, we're happy consumers, that, we're going to, buy all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. But no.
Yeah, and you don't want to slip and fall and reveal that you really are, like, in pain inside, or, like, don't know what you're doing.
That you're struggling. You're struggling to make $1. You have so many side hustles that are going, and you're trying to make things go, but it's not going, and it's killing us as a society. And, well, ultimately, that's my own concept, and that's my own takeaway from us, is that especially because, when Matt Pat pointed out in his video that when Gabe at the beginning, when he meets the tethered, he asks them, who are you? And they say, we're Americans. And, that's it, is that, not only are they us, but they're part of the U.S. It's the two letters that represent the film. And I mean, there's so many layers there that it's, I could go on about this for a long time, obviously, but I like this idea of kind of this neo absurdist movement to that stuff that doesn't do anything. We're just filling our lives with emptiness and trying to fill up that void with emptiness. And ultimately it's filled up by connection. Like you find in This Is Us to
but also you have to be careful with the thinking you found a connection when in reality you're not connected. Like when they did do the Hands Across America.
Yeah.
Like it was supposed to be this big thing, bringing everybody together, like feeding the homeless, yada, yada, yada. Everybody took part in it because like that was the thing to do.
Yeah.
Like everybody was doing it. So you have to do it too. And that in itself is also part of being a narcissist.
But speaking of which, have we as America brought our own demise through this kind of narcissistic consumerism? Have we kind of, is Trump kind of a result of this, of our wanting to get ahead, of our consumerist mentality, that if we buy more stuff and we just keep trying for the American dream, that eventually somebody will give it to us?
Well, I think it has to do, obviously, with capitalism, for sure, and how capitalism has its good points, but there's also many bad points that come along with it. When it comes to capitalism, people tend to focus too much on businesses and growing the businesses, when in reality, you need to be focusing on the people, so then the businesses, like more businesses can grow, and not just a handful that capitalism has decided are going to be the
pinnacle. They're too big to fail.
Exactly. Yeah, because that's where you run into problems.
And we were just having this conversation, with the guy who was giving us an estimate, but about how we appreciate companies that really take care of their employees and their customers. That it's not just the customer's always right thing. It's we've got our vision. We're going to stay true to our goals. We're going to stay true to who we are as a company, and by doing so, we're going to make sure that those who make up the company are taken care of.
Absolutely. And I think that because most of people in our generation have had to work some type of customer service job once in their lifetime, they have a little bit more of an appreciation for people who are still in customer service and in sales.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it sucks.
Yeah, people are mean.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not just the tethered.
Nope, it's not just the tethered. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit. I know this is kind of, I feel like I'm pulling at something that not a lot of people kind of picked up on. And so there's not a lot of stuff out there about the movie. in regards to this, but I thought I would kind of talk about it a little bit because it's something that as a mom and as a person who is a grown-up that I'm kind of interested in.
Well, yeah, you're a millennial. You don't count as an adult.
I don't.
Oh, sorry. For those of you who are not my friend on Facebook, this week I heard a radio advertisement for a social media advertising agency that they said that they're going to get you connected with adults, teens, and millennials. I'm like, what? Millennials are adults.
Yep.
Sorry.
We are adults. I don't always feel like one, but I definitely, according to the doctor, am an adult. So I'm going to talk more about the nature versus nurture argument. And we can kind of see that with the tethered as well as the people on the surface, which don't really have a name because they're not like the real, because you can't really argue that the tethered aren't real because they are real.
They are real, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what to call the surface people. Just the surface people?
Surface people, sure.
Yeah, the upsiders?
Yeah, the upsiders.
Yeah, that's a good one. And how nature versus nurture and how our surroundings really shape us. We really see that, of course, with Adelaide and Red, how obviously, spoiler alert, they switched. Yeah. Well, it's more like Adelaide, the surface Adelaide attacked Red, who Red used to be on the surface. So they switched places. Does that make sense? Tethered one, knocked out the surface one, and then took her place. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Which is the big twist of the movie, the Michael Jackson Thriller end of music video twist.
Yes. Yeah, but that's why I said spoiler alert to all those people who are listening and didn't watch it. Anyway, so what I was bringing that up for is that just kind of shows you how you can have a terrible past, but then still have a pretty successful and thriving future as long as you have enough love and help and support along the way. But then also vice versa. You know, you can have a good past, but then still like grow up and just, I don't know if Red's like a terrible person because she's a victim of her own circumstance, or she just is not able to see what the right thing is or the right path is.
Yeah.
You know? That definitely has, in both sides, has issues with the nature and then the nurture because obviously in this movie, I would argue that nurture has more to do with it than nature does because they're supposed to be clones.
Yeah, you know, and soulless clones at that.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I don't know about the whole soulless thing.
Yeah, I think that was an odd choice of words, I think, for the movie. I mean, considering that, you know, we still debate as a society whether or not we have a soul. I mean, even in most theological circles, that is still an ongoing debate in, you know, do we have a soul? So.
Well, and for all we know, it basically it could just be because of how they grew up, the surroundings that they were put in. You know what I mean? Which is why I'm bringing up
nature versus nurture.
Nature versus nurture. Okay, so thinking about yourself and kind of like what you've gone through, things your parents have done versus kind of where you were raised, that kind of thing. Which do you think influenced you the most? Do you think it was nature or do you think it was nurture?
Well,
I'm saying influenced you the most, assuming that, of course, they both
did.
Yeah.
Well, I really feel that environment, you know, did have impact, but I think my parents especially, you know, like they weren't perfect, but when, you know, they paid attention, when they did, you know, parent, which my mom was mostly the person doing the parenting, you know, they did an excellent job at it. They gave us skills for coping without even knowing it. You know, they gave us emotional coping skills, which, you know, it was something that, you know, we learned because my mom loved us and we knew that love was there and that she was trying her best.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, gosh, it's so hard. I don't know, like growing up, having older sisters and a younger sister, which my older sisters kind of took attention because they were teenagers when I was, in my formative years. And so they kind of took a lot of attention away. And then there was my younger sister who, being the baby of the family, also took a lot of attention away. I would say, gosh, this is hard. I wrote this question and then I didn't think about how I was going to answer it. I think it's a little bit of both, because I feel like people are born with some like predisposition, like in their personality. But I also think that based on the nurture aspect of things, that can either change it or influence it in some way, So like my predisposition is being more on the quiet side, being more observant, learning from other people's mistakes, kind of taking in my surroundings like as a whole. But then on the nurture side, my grandma always was very loving and very kind, not just towards me, but also instilled in me that I should be kind and loving to everybody, including strangers as well too. And so I don't think I would have learned that really without her. Maybe Harry Potter would have taught me, but she definitely helped influence that. So,
well, and to be honest, and I think this argument can be made for the film that this is displayed very, very well through my own argument, is that in the society that we're in, that who people want us to be hides who we really are. And that's the way that like Adelaide can get away with being tethered and being on the surface, because she picked up the false identity of the surfacers.
Yeah. And that also makes sense too, because I've had people, it's like when people who you didn't really know them very well at a certain point in time.
Yeah. And
then all of a sudden you guys have a sit-down conversation, actually get to know each other. I'm sure you've heard somebody say before, oh, you're nothing like I thought you were going to be.
Yeah.
Like they were putting their own mask on you.
Oh, I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
When I say I'm Mexican and then all of a sudden I show up and I kind of look white and, they expect me to speak with my Latino accent, which...
I seriously have had people tell me, like, oh, Miguel doesn't look like how I thought he was going to look. And I'm just like, what did you expect? Like, what do you mean he doesn't look like what I thought he was? Anyway.
I guess sound more like my dad. But then again, I couldn't do the podcast very well because, people wouldn't understand me very well.
People could understand you. They would just have to maybe focus in a little bit more. But anyway, another thing too that I kind of thought was interesting is as part of like her coping skills, maybe there's a theory out there that Adelaide kind of like forgot her past a little bit. Like she kind of forgot that she was tethered, and part of like her coping mechanism, which is something true that people actually do. Like when they're victims of abuse, they'll tend to just kind of, their body like forgets it.
Yeah.
For how long, or like they forget bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, blocking the memory.
Exactly. Yeah. But she still kind of had a feeling, like she didn't want to go to the beach, and it could have just, for all she knew, she was like, I just don't feel good at the beach. I feel uneasy about beaches, but I can't explain why. You know what I mean? And I think that's pretty common when people aren't really sure why they're afraid of things. They just know that they are, and then all of a sudden I think,
that formed a new theory.
What?
Oh, that traumatic events can, well, they do turn us into other people. And we talked about this in other podcast episodes, but, I mean that, especially this traumatic event at the beach turned her into a different person, that they swapped.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like her actually getting lost and going into a scary situation thus made her a different person.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a theory. But I think that she didn't like fully remember what happened to her until she saw the figures outside. Mm-hmm. And then she was like, and then it like came all flooding back. And that's happened to me before, where I like have totally forgotten a memory, and then all of a sudden something will remind me, and then it just like comes flooding back. And then sometimes I go into an anxiety spiral about it. But so do you have a memory? It doesn't have to be like too big or anything, but do you have a memory that all of a sudden popped up that you kind of forgot about?
Well, and I'm not going to use the example that I used right before we started recording, but recently we've been watching The Boys on Amazon Prime. And
not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, it's not. It's almost as triggering as Handmaid's Tale to those of us who grew up in evangelical situations. Which I'm going to bring up is that this Believe Fest was like almost every single like evangelical Christian event that I've ever attended. Mm-hmm. Like I went to Promise Keepers with my dad once, and like it's very much that whole like, oh, we're going to save the world. It's your job to save the world and kind of things. And I just remembered like that instance kind of triggered in me that, oh, that's my job. And how I felt at that moment, that it was my duty to save people. Mm-hmm. That, that's where my savior complex, was, encouraged and solidified. So,
mm-hmm. Yep. So I was going to ask you what triggered it, but you already told me that. So
yeah.
There you go. So for me, it actually happened, I can't remember if it was last night or the night before, but as I was going to bed, all of a sudden a memory just kind of like popped into my head, and I'm sure everybody has done this before. It was a memory of when I was in high school. I had a crush on this guy in my Spanish class, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name. So obviously, like, he was very important to my life. But, like, I'm pretty sure who it was, but somebody was, like, writing notes to him and saying it was from me. But then they were also writing notes to me saying that they were from him.
Ah.
Yeah. Which, like, it was just very weird. Like, very bizarre. I remember thinking, like, if this, like, his handwriting is way too nice for this. Like, I think I've seen his handwriting before, and this is not him. And just kind of, like, his reactions to things that I would say about, like, letters supposedly written by him. And then he would just have this, like, weird expression on his face, and I'd be like, you. And I kind of, like, slowly, like, I didn't know it at first, but I slowly picked up on the fact that somebody was being mean and playing a practical joke on the two of us. But anyway, so that, like, I don't know, it just triggered, like, a whole anxiety spiral of, like, oh my God, like, does he still think I'm this nutcase? Or, like, and just kind of, like, going down, and I don't know, it was just, I couldn't get to sleep very easily that night.
So, speaking of music then, are you like Camila Cabello, which, you like being called Señorita?
No.
Okay.
No. My Spanish name was, I had two, but the one that I had the longest was Yolanda. But my Spanish teacher called me Yoli.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yep. Anyway. So, should we go ahead and move on to the saints? Or
we probably should, yeah. But you can finish up. We've got time.
Okay.
A little bit.
All right. So, just real quick, just another point that I have out there. Being products of our environment. This is something that Gabe actually brought up to Zora, saying, hey, why don't you go run out on the sand? It'll make you a better runner because you're going to be fighting an element that you haven't experienced before.
Yeah.
And it's going to make you tougher and harder. And they kind of bring that up a little bit for the tethered, too. Like, Zora's counterpart, Umbri, super fast. Like, ridiculously fast. And it's kind of like hinted at it's because that she had a really bad environment that she learned to run in, and thus she became a better runner on the surface world in places where it was easier to run. Also, the two twins, which I forgot to write the names down, but Kitty and Josh's twins, the teenagers, the tethered versions of themselves, which I also forgot to write down because they were weird. No, seriously, it was like I.O. or something like that. Yeah. I don't know. But they were like really super good at gymnastics, like crazy good. The tethered were, and that probably had to do with their surroundings. And I remember as a kid, I think it was for the Olympics that they were being held in China, the Summer Olympics. it was this big to-do because I remember I can't remember like the stage the floor routine is done on. I can't remember what that's called, but apparently in China, when they train for the floor routine, they don't use like the springs like on that floor. So when they get onto the springs, like they're able to jump higher because they have like a little bit help like from the springs. So that kind of reminded me a little bit of the whole being sort of like influenced by your environment and surroundings.
Which, you know, we're running out of time, and we want to say there's a ton in this movie that, you know, we could have talked about, including, you know, a lot of that, how, you know, kind of hiding those things in ourselves and stuff like that, you know, that how it kind of makes those things stronger, like those demons a little bit stronger. And even like the Bible verse that it keeps being shown up, which, you know, I don't know who picked up their Google device afterwards to search that out, but it's one of the wrath telling things that, you know, God is saying that they won't be able to run away from the evil that I will stick on them kind of things. And which, you know, shows that a lot of people weren't able to run away from themselves, which, you know, brings in that whole quote, wherever you run, there you are, or wherever you go, there you are. So anyway, like I said, there's a lot there that we can talk about. So let's move on to the Saints. For me, I'm picking Jason. Jason, which I really want to know if Jordan Peele has played Heavy Rain.
I feel like if anybody has played Heavy Rain and they get stuck in that stupid scene where Jason is lost.
Just keep yelling, Jason.
Jason. It's like the same 3 Jasons over and over again.
I know. And I thought it was funny that when Jason was lost and they started yelling, Jason, that's all that came to my mind. So that's why I wondered if Jordan Peele did that. So I'm going to consider that a miracle because it instilled memories of Heavy Rain in its audience for those who actually played the game. So that's a miracle. Of course, that's a miracle performed by Jordan Peele, but you know, we're going to attribute it to Jason.
Okay,
Jason. But I mean, there's other better ones. Like, for instance, his ability to, even though he knows there's something wrong with his mom, to be able to be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep on going on with my whole mask thing.
Yep.
And you know, his ability to accept situations, even though they're not necessarily the best situations.
Well, and to be honest, she's his mom.
Yeah.
You know, like that hasn't changed. She really did give birth to him.
Yes.
You know? But that also kind of brings up like, so the kids are like half tethered. What does that mean? Does that make a difference? That's a whole other theory.
Which they're clones. What would that make them? And, you know, yeah, it's a weird plot hole. So, yeah. So, and another thing is Jason's just being a kid. And I think that's, you know, that childlike wonder of all things is a miracle in and of itself. So, yeah, Saint Jason.
I picked other sibling, Zora. I think that the miracle that she performed is the fact that she is a teenager, and when the situation got serious, even though she wasn't listening to her parents at the beginning of the movie, or just thought that, you know, who knows what teenagers are thinking nowadays, but she obviously wasn't listening to them, that when everything got serious, she took what they said to heart and she just followed their instructions. You know, like when her mom was like, run, she ran, you know? And that's kind of hard to do, listening to somebody who you kind of don't have that much respect for.
Want to rebel against?
Yeah.
I think they're so out of touch.
Yep, exactly.
So, obviously we didn't get to everything in this 40 minutes, but if you have anything that you would like to talk about for this movie, this great movie, please let us know, and we'll let you know now how to get a hold of us.
Yes, so you can get a hold of us at primarily on Facebook, on Instagram, at Patron Saints of Pop Culture. And then our website, I'm going to let you say that because I always mess it up.
Is www.patronsaintsofpopculture.org.
Thank you. And so, yeah, so find us there. Leave a brief message about what you thought about us and the things that kind of popped into your mind that you kind of thought that were interesting. And then also leave us maybe a suggestion on something that we should watch and review next.
Exactly. And with all of that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.
Favor.